A few weeks ago, I couldn't believe my ears as I literally had to explain to somebody what double standards are, and worse yet, why it's not okay for you to have them. And I just thought that was kind of universally understood and accepted. But then I thought about it more and I realized that most of us have, at least at one point in our lives, been guilty of having double standards, of having expectations of other people that we don't have of ourselves, or otherwise granting ourselves privileges that we're not willing to grant to other people. And so in this video, I want to explain the science behind why that's not okay, so that if that's the type of person you are, that makes some more sense to you, or if you know somebody like that, like the person that I ran into a few weeks ago, then you're prepared to defend your argument. So the first reason why this is not okay is because if you have an expectation of somebody else that you yourself are not willing to meet, then you're proving through your unwillingness that there exists a reason for why that's the case. Whether it's too difficult or costly or even impossible, then not only do you have an expectation, but you have an unreasonable expectation of others. So, for example, I talked about this in my video on leadership. When I was in the Army, I expected that my soldiers would be able to run 2 miles in less than 14 minutes, and I expected that of myself as well, and I knew it was possible because I could meet that standard. But then if I turned around and said, okay, now you guys need to be able to do it in less than 12 minutes or something, but then I didn't expect it of myself, it would probably be because that's extremely difficult. And I've proven that through my unwillingness to meet that same standard, because I was not capable of doing that. Now, the second reason that this is not okay is because in having double standards, you stand to contradict yourself in a lot of different ways, because you're not practicing what you preach. So on one hand, you're going around telling people to do something because you supposedly believe that there's some merit to it, but then your actions contradict that because you do something else, you do the opposite, and it indicates that you believe the exact opposite. So an example of this would be the environmentalist who drives to the rally protesting against fossil fuels. So on one hand, they're telling everybody that this is a terrible thing and there's no merit to us using fossil fuels. But then on the other hand, clearly they believe there is merit because they use that to power their vehicle to get there in the first place. So you can't really blame people for not seeing eye to eye with you if it's not even clear what your contention is to begin with. Next, when you grant yourself privileges that you don't grant to other people, then whatever your excuse is, it translates into the fact that you think you're better than that person, whether you realize it or not on a subconscious level. But this is completely unfounded because at the end of the day, we're all human beings and there's nothing that makes any one person fundamentally better than the next. And so we're all deserving of the same level of respect. So for example, if you're in a relationship with somebody and you expect that whenever you have a grievance with them that they stay calm and listen to you and arrive at a compromise with you, then that's great. But if you turn around and do the opposite, whenever they have a grievance with you, you just get frustrated and angry, then you're not extending the same privilege to them that you are to yourself, and you're implying that you're better than them because you're deserving of that and they're not. And that's not really even going to bode well for the quality of that relationship in the long term, because that person's not going to feel very respected because you're saying that they're inferior to you. So even if you argue against that, it's still not going to work out for you. And lastly, if you have double standards, then you have no value proposition. You're not offering anything in return for people to meet the standards that you place upon them because you're not willing to meet them halfway. So people will look at that and say, why should I? What's the incentive if you're not going to reciprocate? So going back to the previous example with relationships, if you expect someone to compromise with you, but you're not willing to do that with them, then they're going to look at that and ask, why should I do that? What do I get in exchange for that? And with your refusal to meet them halfway, the answer really is nothing. So they're likely going to refuse and say, well, there's nothing in it for me. So with all that said, the takeaway is the next time you have expectations of others, you've got to stop and ask yourself if you yourself are capable of and willing to meet those same expectations. Because if you're not, then you have to either drop them altogether or put the work in on a consistent basis, not just one time, but every single time until you are. And you have to be understanding of other people when they can't in the meantime, instead of getting frustrated and angry with them. So I hope this helps, and I'll see you next time.